the press some years ago that's kind of been dragged up to a degree. It's a nonsense. It was a nonsense when it was first spoken about some years ago, and it's just as big a nonsense now. It needs to be a 6 foot tall, dark-haired, strapping, middle-aged guy. I say middle, I mean talking about 32.
Well, Graham, like,
32 is quite young in my book.
Well, but I mean, look, Graham, what I say is that a lot of these. I mean, I know Amazon, I believe, have bought the rights to James Bond now. I mean, you've seen what they've done with some of their other shows. I'm not so convinced they're not going to go down this super woke, what I would call woke route. Is it? Do they really need to reinvent James Bond though? Because we've had so many iterations of him. They pretty much killed him off in the last movie. Do we need to reinvent the idea of James Bond, or should James Bond just retire? Should we say, actually, do you know what? We've had James Bond for almost 100 years. Actually, should we let this character rest for at least a bit of time, or maybe just retire the character before it gets destroyed by modern reinventions of it?
Well, I think there's always going to be a market. There's always going to be an audience for James Bond if those films are made the correct way. I mean, you've got a perfect blueprint. If you look at the Bond films in the 60s, and you follow that as a blueprint, you can't go wrong, because most of them are based on Ian Fleming, and it's the best Bond films are the ones that are based on Fleming's books quite closely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Wednesday, the 24th of March, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Well, that was just one of the bold claims made by Donald Trump as he addressed the UN in an astonishing hour-long speech full of challenges for European leaders.
The US President also took the opportunity to reaffirm his views, somewhat hostile views, on the London Mayor Sadiq Khan.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
As Labour MPs urged Sir Keir Starmer to take action over the US President's inflammatory comments, Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden told GB News that Donald Trump has misread our great capital city.
London, our capital city, is a great place. It's known around the world. We have British law here at Selhurst Park this morning, no other kind of law, and that's what applies in our capital city and throughout our country.
In another blow to the authority of Keir Starmer, leaked emails revealed Labour's lawyer advised the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, to describe £700,000 in unreported donations as an administrative error.
Gun laws are rolled back, so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America, don't let it become Farage's Britain.
In his conference speech, Lib Dem leader Ed Davey has warned that a Reform UK government would roll back gun laws and increase the risk of school massacres. Is that fair?
And we like this because it's a victory in the war on woke. Cheltenham Festival, that's the racing festival, is bringing back Ladies' Day for the first time in 7 years, after ditching it for the Star Wednesday.
Well, Andrew, it was quite an astonishing speech at the UN yesterday. Started off with Donald Trump saying that the person who is in charge of the auto queue is in big trouble because it failed. And then he spoke for 57 minutes.
I know. He was only meant to speak for 15 minutes. He can't stand the United Nations. He won't pay any more money towards the United. He thinks it's a failing organisation. And he's right.
That's right, and he's quite offensive, and lots of people have taken umbrage with what he said. But some of the things he said, people in this country will recognise as true. Mass migration, destroying our way of life, all these other things he said. Cheap energy is something we really, really need. Yep. So if you can see through the kind of strangeness of the way he speaks, there's a lot of truth in there, perhaps. Fascinating.
We'd like to know, as always, what you think. Send your views and post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. Just after 9:30, the top story. Energy watchdog Ofgem is forcing suppliers to offer at least one tariff with lower standing charges from January, but warns bills won't necessarily fall with costs simply shifted elsewhere. Campaigners call it only a small step as charges remain unfair for low energy users. In New York, Donald Trump has said Ukraine can now win back all its original borders, a sharp U-turn after talks with President Zelensky. The US leader branded Russia a paper tiger as NATO vowed to hit back at escalating airspace violations. The UK's new AI fraudbuster has clawed back nearly £500 million in a year, much of it lost during COVID. Ministers say the savings will fund nurses, teachers and police, though critics warn of risks in rolling the tool out abroad. Travel chaos at Stansted this morning. Trains halted, roads gridlocked and a small lounge fire adding to the disruption. The airport's urging passengers to check before they travel. And nearly 2 million people have been evacuated in China as Super Typhoon Regasa, the world's strongest storm this year so far, has slammed in after killing 14 in Taiwan. Jimmy Kimmel has returned to late-night TV after his suspension, tearfully insisting he never meant to make light of Charlie Kirk's murder, while blasting Trump's attempt to silence him, calling it un-American. Those are the headlines for now. A full roundup of all the top stories at 10.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, an amazing story broke this morning. Some prisoners from Romania, they'd served time in our jails for, amongst other offences, murder, sexual offences, serious violent crimes. They were put on a plane to be deported, and some of them were given, to encourage them to get on the plane in a well-behaved way, a credit card loaded up with up to £2,000 of taxpayers' cash. I'm sorry, it is an outrage. There'll be people watching this programme and listening to this programme who will be struggling to think, can they put the heating on this winter?
Yeah.
Pensioner fuel poverty. And we're giving foreign criminals £2,000 to get them to clear off quietly. Yeah. Can you believe it?
I know, and I think the idea is that they can't withdraw the money until they actually land in Romania, so it makes sure they actually get on the plane. I mean, it's crazy, but on the other hand, how much would it cost to have 4 or 5 security guards for each person flying with them to make sure that they don't cause a problem at the airport? But it does seem ridiculous.
The perception is just shocking. It is just so... And this has been going on, get this, since 2006.
Yeah, it's obviously established practice.
It was introduced by Tony Blair's government. Do you remember when Tony Blair was a young would-be Prime Minister? Tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. He said, how is that tough on the causes of crime, giving a Romanian rapist £2,000? I'm sorry, it's got to stop.
Completely unjust.
It's got to stop.
Well, some other shocking news. President Donald Trump sent shockwaves at the UN General Assembly.
I don't think it is a shock that Donald Trump has caused shockwaves.
Well, that's true.
You know what I mean? Because that's what he does.
Another Trump headline, that's what we should be saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he was at, of course, the United Nations General Assembly last night, telling European leaders that their countries are going to hell.
When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Modesty says he's really good at this stuff. But you could see the stunned reaction in that room.
Yep.
Because in the United Nations, people, they talk in platitudes, and you very rarely get a controversial speech like that. And it reminds me of when J.D. Vance, the Vice President, spoke at a Munich security conference. He tore the European leaders apart, and you could see their jaws dropping, and they were jaws dropping for that speech. He was supposed to speak for 50 minutes and spoke for 57. Now, he got some of it wrong. There is no evidence that I'm aware of that there's a massive expansion of Sharia law in London on Sadiq Khan's watch.
No, this is part of his ongoing very public feud with Sadiq Khan. But, of course, he also attacked all of Europe, European leaders, several times over immigration and green energy policies as well.
Yeah, and it was an extraordinary speech by Trump, and the deputy assistant to a former deputy assistant to Donald Trump, Seb Gorka, spoke to our very own Bev Turner on the Late Show Live, doubling down on the president's comments.
About politics. It's not about persecution. It's about the welfare state. And as you said, getting that free mobile phone and that cushy little hotel in Brighton, that's not being a refugee. That's being an illegal immigrant who's playing the system. Here in the US, we've stopped it.
Well, let's get some British reaction to the Trump speech from Labour councillor Sebastian Salek. Sebastian, good morning. Nice to see you again. Not sure Sebastian can see us. Good morning. There he is. Sebastian, I mean, we could talk about this speech all day, but at the core, his core message was right, wasn't it? The UN has proved to be an organisation that can't achieve very much, that spends an awful lot of money, and in Trump's words, all it can do is send strong letters.
Yeah, I mean, he was talking about broken escalators and broken teleprompters. Clearly something in the immediate term had bugged him, and he thought, OK, let's go on a tirade and see what else I can criticise. We're used to this with Trump now, aren't we? Every now and then he just malfunctions and the wastewater comes flowing out, and he has one of these episodes where he talks a load of rubbish, frankly, all the stuff on Sharia law. I'm pleased to see you calling it out as well. It's just completely made up, and it's stunning to see. It's shocking but not surprising, I think, at this point, that the President of the United States can make up lies about one of the greatest cities in the world, I would say the greatest city in the world, London, and seemingly just get away with it.
Well, is the Prime Minister, in your view, his great... because he calls Donald Trump his great friend, of course, and they had that rather warm state visit last week. Should the Prime Minister condemn him? Should he call him out?
It's so tough, isn't it? Because if they were together...
Is it tough? If he's
well,
making up lies, as you say, why is it tough?
Listen to this. I'm going to give you an answer. If they were together, I have no doubt that Starmer would have called him out. We saw him do it on free speech, the time that Trump said that there was no free speech in the UK, another outright lie. And I'm sure that Starmer would have done it this time. It's so much easier to do when you're in person. I think when it comes to Trump, you have to think about the bigger picture. The influence he has on the UK economy is outsized. We saw that with the tariffs, and we see that every day with the erratic moves that he makes. So you have to think about British people with money in their pockets and what that kind of criticism could lead to in terms of a backlash. So as much as I think many of us would want to see this called out, you have to think about what the consequences might be as well.
But Sebastian, if we step back from Trump's very unique style and these kind of occasional bombs that he throws that distract everybody, underneath this is a very serious clash of worldviews. We've got global, what he would call global imperialists on one side, the UN, the EU, people who want to spread their brand of liberalism across the whole world. On the other side, we've got what you might call nationalists, people who think that the nation state should be sovereign and that countries should cooperate, yes, but not try to spread an ideology around the world. This is where the argument is at, and he is right to prosecute that, isn't he?
Well, I think at a time like now, where there is literal war in Europe, I want to see those kinds of ideological divisions put aside in the name of working together to
But how can you? That division is so fundamental, whether or not individual countries should get involved in other countries' wars and disagreements. That's fundamental to all this, isn't it?
Well, look, there is a country in Europe that is being invaded by a dictator, and we can stand here and argue about ideologies, or we can come together in the face of that dictator. Now, I'm pleased to see there was one good thing that came out of yesterday, and that was Trump showing a little bit more of a conciliatory approach towards Ukraine. And I really hope that that sticks, because we need him on side. But what is also really heartening to see is European leaders coming together, despite Trump, to work together. In the days after Brexit, I'm not sure I thought that was going to be possible in the coming years. And I'm really pleased to see that it has been, and that France and Germany and the UK and many others can form this kind of united front that we need in Europe if we're going to keep aggressors like Putin at bay.
All right, that's Sebastian Salek, the Labour councillor. Now, some people have put Trump's ire, irritation, anger down to a problem with the escalator at the United Nations. Shall we have a look at it? See if this is what we think. Here we go. So if it is on the radio, this is Trump on the escalator at the UN. It stops abruptly. And there he is with the First Lady. They're having to walk up the escalator, which he manages perfectly well.
Absolutely.
I think he managed it much better than Joe Biden would have managed it.
Sadly true. And he managed to get a comment in, didn't he? He's like, if the First Lady wasn't in such great shape, she would have fallen over. He obviously was...
and then there was a problem with the teleprompter, wasn't there?
That's right. The auto cue failed and he had to read from his folder. Maybe that was his excuse for staying up there for 57 minutes, because they could no longer cut him off by cutting the auto cue. An extraordinary spectacle, and it's in such stark contrast to Biden, who, like you say, towards the end of his tenure, he never said anything. He wasn't allowed out in public.
No, dithering and doddery and too old. And well, he wasn't too old. You're not too old at 80 to be president. He just wasn't.
It wasn't up to it.
Didn't have the right cognitive powers, did he? Yeah. Now, still ahead.
Leaked emails reveal that a top lawyer advised the Prime Minister's chief of staff to describe £700,000 in hidden donations as an admin area.
So, and GB News also an exclusive story here from our very own Mark White. There's going to be a fresh surge of migrants crossing the Channel this weekend. Our security editor, Mark White, will join us with the details.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Western and central parts of Europe will start to see any heavy downpours easing away, though some scattered showers will still remain. That's not so much the case across the Canary Islands, Madeira, also Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, largely dry, plenty of sunny spells. But across France, even into parts of Germany, we could still see some isolated showers remain. But through Italy, the Adriatic coastline and also parts of Greece remaining settled, dry with sunny spells, though we could start to see more showers over the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Bev, I'm so sad that you're leaving Britain, but so excited that you're going to go and conquer the United States of America.
Congratulations on this fantastic posting, and I hope you have a fantastic time on your big political adventure in Washington, D.C.
And I just know this is your time, this is your place, America is your place. You are going to shine.
Yeah, Bev, you are going to absolutely smash it. America, be ready for Bev Turner.
I'm actually not even going to say good luck. You don't need it. You're going to bring Washington down like a storm, bringing us the inside track of everything.
It's the reconquest of America. You are going where Columbus went before, and remember that the English are best.
We're really, really excited about GB News America, and you are the perfect person to be fronting it. We can't wait to watch you, although it's going to be so hard not seeing you in the studio.
Yeah, we're going to miss you hugely, Bev. We know you are absolutely going to smash it. You will be. You're going to have them on the run.
Good luck to you. You won't need it because you're a legend. We saw that at Turnberry, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in just a few weeks. Love ya. Wow.
Well, it's been a ball, Bev. Nobody could say it's been dull, eventful, unpredictable, erratic. We've not always seen eye to eye, but it has been a great experience for me, and my loss is America's gain. So the very best of luck to you.
That was quite emotional. I got quite tearful then.
Well, the people are very fond of you, but great outpouring of love and affection and admiration for what you're going to do.
And I'm going to, honestly, I'm not leaving GB News. No. Let's just be clear. I am going to be hosting a show Monday to Thursday. You're going to be seeing me all over every show. Hopefully, I'll be popping up here and there. I'll do some exclusive bits for Andrew here. I'll send you.
You'd say.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 12 minutes to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, after Donald Trump's warnings about migration destroying countries in Europe, I think he meant specifically this one, at the UN General Assembly, GB News has got a scoop from our very own Mark White. There's going to be a surge of them illegally crossing this weekend, which just happens to be, Miriam, the start of the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. That's going to be embarrassing. Mark White.
Yeah, very helpful for the start of that conference.
Because we're going to be reporting this out the whole time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we're in a very strange period where we have had so much windy weather in the Channel that what's been happening is you have a run of about a week or so of impassable conditions where the people smugglers are unable to launch their boats. Then you get 1 or 2 days of really good weather and we get huge surges, and that's what's going to happen this weekend. Thursday into Friday the weather will sort of calm in the Channel again, so later on Friday they'll start crossing. Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be, you know, very busy, I think, in the Channel. We're looking well in excess of 1,000 again, I would imagine.
Yeah, so that's going to be really difficult because he's going to be talking about how they're getting to grips with the problem. And, of course, we saw in the High Court yesterday, Mark, the Home Office defeats thwarted again in trying to deport a migrant.
Well, yes, this was the Eritrean, remember, that got a stay, you know, to sort of remain while he claimed that he had been a victim of modern slavery. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, said, look, this was a vexatious claim launched at the last minute. But the High Court, well, Court of Appeal, they've ruled against the government. So another setback. And in fact, I mean, this is the absolutely ridiculous thing about this French returns deal. It's now been how many weeks since it was operationalised? 5, 6 weeks? And we've had 4 migrants. We're waiting to hear if any have been returned today, but 4 in total have been returned back to France. 6,000 have come in that time.
Yeah. And they told us it was going to be 50 a week.
Yeah, but just underlines
how on earth they're ever going to reach that figure in the current way the system is operating, with all of these constant legal challenges that are just slowing the whole thing down.
Well, the Home Secretary, you know, she's a lawyer. Prime Minister's a lawyer.
Well, just that's the only thing they can do. I mean, the government can't control the weather. Was it King Canute who thought he could control the tides? I bet Keir Starmer wishes he could do that. But there's nothing the government can do about the weather. But what they could potentially do is create a deterrent by leaving the ECHR. But those are exactly the kinds of thing that Keir Starmer's never going to do. And I think we're going to see at Labour conference, aren't we? Probably people who are even more to the left of the Labour MPs demanding that Keir Starmer does what? What do you think the Labour conference will want him to do about this?
Well, I mean, I think what they might talk about potentially is what they're going to do with all of those thousands of migrants who are in hotels, 30,000 odd across the country. Fewer than it was, but still a very significant number. The suggestion is that we could get purpose-built camps now that the Lib Dems are suggesting. This was, of course, suggested by Reform and others long ago, that, you know, they need to be kept in austere conditions and not put in 4-star hotels. That might be one thing they're looking at. They're certainly looking about trying to tweak the rules or the laws around how the judges interpret some of these human rights laws, because they do feel that at the moment, you know, the judges are really sort of ruling in favour of laws where they go against the spirit and the intention of what the government of the day is trying to achieve in terms of clamping down on this illegal migration problem.
Can we ask you about the Epping Hotel asylum seeker? This is the one man who triggered those protests at the Bell Hotel. A sex offender, and he got 12 months.
Yeah, Hadish Kabatu now beginning properly that sentence, but the news is he's actually eligible for release now.
Because he was held in custody.
Yeah.
So they could deport him?
So we're told that that process is underway now to get him deported. I think he'll stay in custody until they can get that enacted. As usual with these things, I mean, Ethiopia is not seen as a safe country as such. There is some cooperation with Ethiopia. Well, it's certainly a very valid point.
Human rights lawyer, Andrew. You have an answer to that question.
But I'm sorry, it's too bad he broke the law here. He has sexually assaulted a 14-year-old. He only got 12 months.
Well, and that is another issue. Should the magistrate have referred this up to the Crown Court? The maximum sentence he could hand down in a magistrate's court was 12 months. He did that. But many would feel that actually he'd be justified in referring it up to the Crown Court for a stiffer sentence, given that he and the prosecutors said that this man was not repentant. He was only sorry that he'd been caught. This was a man, remember, in the sort of pre-sentence reports that were carried out, an interview with him, said he didn't realise the UK laws were so rigid, so tough.
An extraordinary
Boot him out, deport him.
Well, Mark White, thank you very much. Well, still ahead.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
Keir Starmer has been urged to take action over Donald Trump's attacks on London Mayor Sadiq Khan.
Bet he doesn't.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any mist or fog this morning should clear away quite readily, leaving another dry day. Plenty of sunny spells. Temperatures will be around about average, but still feeling that little bit cooler where you catch the brisk breeze. Now, there could be some cloud around this morning, particularly across northern and central parts of England. This could be thick enough to produce a very light shower at times, but you should be quite unlucky if you do catch any of those, because for most, it's a dry day, a mix of cloud, plenty of sunny spells, quite breezy at times around coasts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent, but this is where we'll see the best of the temperatures, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius, but around the mid-teens elsewhere. Now, through into the evening, it could still be fairly breezy across parts of the southeast. This could drag in some more cloud as we finish off the day, but elsewhere across England and Wales, a mix of clear skies and some patchy cloud. Fairly similar elsewhere across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and through into Scotland as well. But once again, western coast of Scotland still could be quite breezy even as we finish off the day. And through the course of the night, it should remain mostly dry, but we could still see plenty of clear skies. And with light winds, that means we're likely to see some more mist and fog develop, particularly as we head our way towards dawn, mainly around rural areas and through into any valleys. But more clouds starting to push into the southeast, so not turning quite as chilly here and leading into a bit more of a cloudier start. But once again, under any clear skies, we could see some isolated frost develop, but most towns and cities remaining in the mid to high single figures. So a mostly bright start as we head into Thursday. More cloud across the southeast, but this should lift and break, particularly as we head into the afternoon. Still fairly breezy around southeastern coasts and similar across western coasts of Scotland. Quite breezy here with some more cloud feeding through. But for most, it's going to be a dry day. Plenty of sunny spells and still feeling pleasant in the sunshine, with highs reaching around 18 to 19 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 westbound exit slip at junction 25A is closed due to essential overnight roadworks. Motorists should follow diversion routes and allow additional travel time. An incident on the M18 northbound between junctions 3 and 4 is causing significant delays. Road users are advised to plan alternate routes as one of 2 lanes remains closed. Additionally, on the A38 southbound between the A6 and the junction with the A52, motorists face delays due to congestion. And on the trains, cross-country services to and from Stansted Airport and Elizabeth Line routes through London Liverpool Street are experiencing disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday, the 24th of September. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Well, that was just one of the many bold claims made by Donald Trump as he addressed the UN in an astonishing hour-long speech full of pretty strong challenges for European leaders, including our own Prime Minister.
And the US President also took the opportunity to reaffirm his views on London Mayor Sadiq Khan.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
His comments have infuriated Labour MPs who want the Prime Minister to take action. The Work and Pension Secretary, however, Pat McFadden, told GB News Donald Trump had misread our great capital city.
London, our capital city, is a great place. It's known around the world. We have British law here at Selhurst Park this morning, no other kind of law, and that's what applies in our capital city and throughout our country.
Well, in another blow to Keir Starmer, leaked emails have revealed that Labour's lawyer advised the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, to describe £700,000 in unreported donations as an admin error.
Yes, Morgan McSweeney is in hot water over his failure to disclose these donations made during the 2020 Labour leadership campaign. Is this finally the end of the controversial Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister? Find out more with me very soon.
Gun laws are rolled back, so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America, don't let it become Farage's Britain.
Yes, in his conference speech, Lib Dem leader Ed Davey has warned that a Reform UK government would roll back gun laws and increase the risk of school massacres. Is that fair?
And it's a victory, we say, in the war on woke. Cheltenham Festival, that's the horse racing festival, is bringing back Ladies' Day for the first time in 7 years, because they ditched it for Star Wednesday. Well, there's a lot of pressure on Starmer to say something, because it was a pretty full frontal assault on the Mayor of London again. You and I are no fans of Sadiq Khan, but it's not right to say he's creating a system of Sharia law in London. He isn't.
No, but Sadiq Khan really seems to have got under Trump's skin.
Really?
He mentions him as often as possible. He specifically requested that Sadiq Khan was not at the state banquet last week.
He did. But if you remember in the first state visit back in 2019, there were all those balloon images of Trump flying across London, personally sanctioned by the Mayor of London, which was juvenile at the worst.
Yes.
And just downright offensive.
Absolutely. And Trump's used to protests, of course, and why shouldn't he be in a democracy? But for it to be sanctioned by somebody in power obviously rubbed him up the wrong way. I mean, I just think they shouldn't respond. I think they'll just make it into a bigger and bigger round.
Trump wants them to respond.
Exactly.
But it does make you wonder, the warm glow of the state visit has barely worn off, and he's gone in all guns blazing, as I always thought he would.
Well, we'll have lots more on that, and do let us know what you think. Send your views and post your comments to
gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, here's the headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom just after 10 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, Ofgem has confirmed today that energy suppliers must offer at least one tariff with lower standing charges from January next year, though the fixed costs won't be scrapped entirely. The regulator says the move will give households more choice on how they pay by shifting some of the daily fee into unit rates. It follows consumer pressure to reform the charges, which apply regardless of how much energy people use. Campaigners say a change is only a small step forward, as bills are still set to rise by 2% next month. Ofgem will now consult before final approval, aiming to roll out the new tariffs nationwide by the end of January. Donald Trump has stunned allies with a dramatic shift on Ukraine, saying Kyiv can win all of Ukraine back in its original form. In a truth post on social media, the US president said that Russia is a paper tiger in deep economic trouble and urged Europe and NATO to back Ukraine's push. His comments came after talks with Volodymyr Zelensky at the UN, who called it a big shift and welcomed US security guarantees after the war. Well, Trump had previously warned Ukraine might need to give up land, but now says maybe even go further than that without clarifying. It follows a series of Russian airspace violations condemned by NATO as escalatory and dangerous. The government here has recovered nearly £500 million in just a year using new AI fraud detection tools. More than a third of the money was linked to COVID fraud, including more than £180 million from pandemic schemes like bounce-back loans. Ministers say the savings will be spent on nurses, teachers and police officers. The Cabinet Office calls it the biggest fraud recovery ever. One case even saw a fake company funneling loan cash to Poland. But campaigners warn Labour government's growing use of AI risks bias. Travel chaos at Stansted Airport this morning. All train services, both in and out of the terminals, have been cancelled or disrupted by a signalling fault. Cross-country and Greater Anglia routes are affected, while drivers are also facing major hold-ups. It comes after a small fire broke out in the airport's escape lounge overnight, filling part of the terminal with smoke. The blaze was, though, quickly put out. No one was injured, but security queues are still facing disruption. Jimmy Kimmel has returned to late-night TV, emotional but defiant after his week-long suspension over remarks he made about Charlie Kirk's killing. He insisted he never meant to make light of the murder, praising Erica Kirk's selfless act of grace at her husband's memorial. But he turned his anger on Donald Trump, calling the president's attempt to silence him un-American. Almost 70 ABC affiliates owned by Sinclair and Nexstar refused to air his comeback, leaving a quarter of US homes without the broadcast. And nearly 2 million people have been evacuated in China as super typhoon Regasa is closing in there. Dubbed the king of storms, it's expected to dump a month's worth of rain in just one day. The equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane, Regasa is the strongest storm in the world so far this year. It's already tore through Taiwan, where 14 people were killed and more than 100 remain missing after a lake burst, triggering mass floods. The typhoon has already battered the Philippines, Hong Kong and southern China with days of rain and heavy winds. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with you very shortly. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Miriam.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Lots of texts coming in.
I haven't actually checked yet. I've loaded them up, so we'll have to save that for later on.
And of course, I can't because I don't know how to.
We'll have to train you up, Andrew, on that. I'm sure there's a module on that somewhere. Well, one of our main stories today, of course, is that it has emerged that the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff was advised to describe over £700,000 in hidden donations as an admin error.
A leaked email from a senior Labour lawyer, Morgan McSweeney, that is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. He is, without doubt, the most powerful unelected person in Britain, was advised that if he could not answer questions over the money, then he should put them down as an admin error. Well, let's talk to our GB News political correspondent, Viv Utley. This is significant because of who he is.
Well, absolutely. I mean, hugely, hugely influential figure. As you say, the most influential unelected figure in Britain today. He has been caught up in sagas before, but now people in Westminster are suggesting that perhaps this could be the end of him. Just to go into a bit of detail about what exactly happened. At the time, in 2020, Morgan McSweeney ran a think tank called Labour Together. That Labour Together think tank was helping the Prime Minister on his bid to become Labour leader, and they received £700,000 worth, £740,000 worth in donations, which they used for polling focus groups, etc., which all went towards Keir Starmer's bid to be Labour leader. Now, back in 2017, Morgan McSweeney was told by Labour lawyers that any donation worth more than £1,500 had to be declared on the Register of Interest. Now, at the beginning, Morgan McSweeney stuck to that, so interest of £5,000, £6,000 were declared in 2018, 2019. That's important because it proves that Morgan McSweeney understood what his obligations were, and then after that, when the £700,000 worth of donations came in, he failed to disclose it. Now, the lawyer is very, very damning in his email. He says, we can't understand why you didn't disclose this because you were told explicitly to disclose this back in 2017. So if you can't explain it, and we can't really see, I'm paraphrasing obviously, why you can't, then you will have to just put it down as an admin error. This is really, really shady, and of course comes off the back of all the Lord Alley stories from last year.
And there's also the suggestion that he claims he had made a telephone call to the Electoral Commission about this to get clearance for his course of action, but there's no evidence that this call took place either from Labour Together or from the Electoral Commission. So he is in quite a mess here.
He really is in hot water because if he's trying at the moment to sort of claim that he spoke to the Electoral Commission, and then at some point it seems as though he's sort of trying to claim ignorance over this. He says that he didn't realise that Labour Together was a members' group, but obviously he did realise Labour Together was a members' group because he was told about it by the lawyers back in 2017, and at the beginning he did disclose donations that came in. So we don't really have a coherent line yet from Morgan McSweeney defending himself, and I think we're going to need one soon.
Now, these emails are 4.5 years old. The Electoral Commission found that Labour Together had been in breach. I think they imposed 20 sanctions or fines. So in some ways, this is an old story. Why has it emerged now?
Well, the Conservatives have, it's their sort of latest attack line. They found this new email from these lawyers and they've put it on their website. So this is the Conservatives' big attack line at the moment. But as you say, Miriam, I mean, you could argue it was an old story. They have already been sanctioned for other breaches. This, as far as I can see, is the biggest breach so far. And it's directly related to Morgan McSweeney, who was the head of the think tank at the time. And obviously Morgan McSweeney has become sort of more and more powerful in the Labour government over time. He's been promoted. So if the Conservatives were able to take out Keir Starmer's top man, as it were, that would be really damaging for the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister is going to want to cling on to this bloke if he can, because he's lost his Deputy Prime Minister. He had to sack Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to the United States, an ambassador he personally chose, despite a lot of advice not to do it because of his dodgy links with Jeffrey Epstein. And also, he lost his Director of Strategy last week, Paul Overton, who over some offensive emails that had come to light about Diane Abbott.
Well, exactly, and I think there's a bit of a risk for the Prime Minister in that what we've seen in the last sort of 10 years or so is that what happens is Westminster sort of goes for a top advisor. The top advisor finally gets taken out, and then the spotlight turns onto the Prime Minister. We saw it with Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Could we be seeing it again with Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer?
Fascinating, Olivia Utley. Well, let's talk to the Mail on Sunday columnist Dan Hodges, who's been leading the way on this story. Dan, morning to you.
Good morning.
How much trouble is McSweeney in, bearing in mind the Electoral Commission has already imposed that fine some time ago, but when they imposed that fine, we didn't know about this exchange with the lawyer?
I think that's the key point. Obviously, Labour Together were fined, although it's important to stress, whilst it was a significant fine, it wasn't the sort of biggest fine that the Electoral Commission could impose. And obviously these new revelations are very, very damaging because they quite clearly demonstrate that Labour Together was being investigated by the Electoral Commission for a very serious material breach of the law. That is not disputed because obviously the fine was levied. What the emails clearly show is during that investigation, the Prime Minister's most senior advisor attempted to hide the truth and the full facts from the Electoral Commission during that investigation. And as a result of that, as we've seen, there are still a number of very serious questions that Morgan McSweeney has not been able to answer and is consistently failing to answer on precisely why he failed to comply with the law. Now, that would be a serious enough issue at the best of times in relation to the organisation. You then put on top of that the fact that the man responsible for that is, as you've said, the most important and senior political advisor in the country. But you then put on top of that the very way in which Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer have consistently attacked, berated, vilified their political opponents for what they have described as sleaze, not playing by the rules, undermining public confidence in political probity and the British political class. Keir Starmer was elected on what I remember writing about at the time was, in my view, a rather pious mandate of cleaning up British politics. So how can we have a situation where his most senior advisor is exposed in this way and we still don't have clear answers? It seems to me McSweeney's position at the moment, unless he can answer these questions, his position is becoming increasingly untenable.
But why would he want to cover up the donations, Dan? Is it, as some suggested, because he didn't want the Corbynistas, who are still running the Labour Party, to know just how much money Labour Together was getting together to effectively bankroll Starmer's assault on the leadership?
That's the key to the whole saga. When Labour Together was set up, Morgan McSweeney was very, very clear to everybody involved at a senior level within the organisation that the purpose of the organisation was basically to reclaim Labour from the Corbynites and ultimately to insert Keir Starmer into the Labour leadership and ultimately Downing Street. But the crucial thing was nobody was supposed to know about it. The public facing of Labour Together was, we're just an entirely innocent, pretty dull, bog standard Labour think tank with a few policy wonks and a few ideas about the direction of the Labour Party. In fact, it was, as we now know, and we know this because since the election, Morgan McSweeney and his allies have openly boasted about this. We know it was actually a very well-financed, very ruthless political attack vehicle aimed at Jeremy Corbyn. But the thing was, if Morgan McSweeney in 2017, I think that was a very accurate description of how it was set up, Labour Together were getting relatively small donations. Suddenly, the checkbooks of Labour's major donors were suddenly opened to Labour Together. If Jeremy Corbyn and the rest of the Labour movement had been aware of that, then the true purpose of what Labour Together and Morgan McSweeney were trying to do would have become very, very apparent. And so that's why Morgan McSweeney couldn't afford to let the full scale of the donations become public at that time.
Now, the email from the Labour lawyer is 4.5 years old. How do you think it's made its way into the public domain, and why now?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, I think obviously there is a kind of a backdrop to this. I mean, obviously you referenced the departure of Starmer's other senior aide, Paul Overton. If you recall, that was also that messages were leaked last week, and at that time I was told that there has been a major data dump from within the Labour Party, which is in the hands of Keir Starmer's political opponents on the left. Now, we've got a book that's due to be published sometime, I think, later this year, which is said to contain a number of these emails, these messages, and further revelations. Downing Street are bracing themselves for further revelations. So I think that if you were going to look to where the original source of the material is, I would guess it's in that area.
Dan, in 10 seconds, does McSweeney survive?
No, he's going to go at some point, I think, relatively soon.
Very interesting. All right, that's Dan Hodges. That would be disaster for the Prime Minister. Dan, well done. A great story. That's Dan Hodges from the Mail on Sunday. Now we need to read a statement from Labour Together, which says...
Labour Together proactively raised concerns about its own reporting of donations to the Electoral Commission in 2020. The investigation with which Labour Together fully cooperated was completed in 2021 and the outcome was made public.
I mean, a spokesman for the Electoral Commission said it had thoroughly investigated the late reporting of donations by Labour Together in 2021. We were satisfied the evidence proved beyond reasonable doubt that failures by the association occurred without reasonable excuse.
Offences were determined and they were sanctioned accordingly.
The Tories think they can scent blood.
I think there's more to come on this. I mean, it would be incredibly damaging to Starmer because McSweeney is seen as the one person who is kind of keeping Labour on track to potentially win back the red wall.
Absolutely right. Now, still ahead, tax inspectors
have already started raiding the bank accounts of those who choose not to pay their bills.
Up next, excusez-moi, find out who Emmanuel Macron was forced to call for help after his motorcade was stopped by the cops in New York. You're going to love that.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
I thought you'd set up a new version of Pimlico Plumbers in London.
Yeah, my family have set up a company called We Fix London, but we started planning that, 2 years before Labour got in. If we'd known Labour was getting in, we wouldn't have planned it. So obviously we've got to comply with the tax regulations, but anybody with any sense would agree with what I'm saying. The taxes are too high in the UK for wealthy people. Wealthy people can go and work anywhere in the world and be financially a lot better off.
And we had a non-dom regime that was basically stable for 200 years. It's only recently that it's been changed. And we're changing it and making it harder, just as other countries are making it easier. So you can go to Italy and you can negotiate an amount that you will pay. Portugal's been welcoming people. Malta's been welcoming people. All over the world, countries are saying, please come and bring your money. And the UK is saying, we're going to take all your money. We don't want you anymore.
That's right. Look, I mean, they're all encouraging sort of UK business people to come there, and it's working. If you become a tax exile in Italy, you pay 200 grand for the year. You don't have to pay no more. But the real problem is we're wasting their money, and they should be encouraging entrepreneurs to be staying. I think our biggest export at the moment is wealthy people.
So you're a businessman. You know how to do things and make a profit. If you're advising the Chancellor on how to get the money the country needs to pay for the public services, what would you be saying? Because at the moment, the tax revenues don't meet our expenditure. There is a gap. Something needs to give.
Resign.
All right, but that's not the answer.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
(10:22), Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam. The panel are here. Statler and Waldorf, the broadcaster journalist Mike Parry, and the former Labour MP Stephen Hand. Which one is Statler and which one is Waldorf out of you two, by the way?
Well, S comes before W, so quite clearly he's the senior man.
Well, there you go. You know, these things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, Guardian jumpers, right? Isn't this fantastic?
Oh, no.
Isn't this so fantastic? £30 million in debt, come up with a fantastic money-making idea. We'll sell jumpers with the word Guardian on them for £280. I'd pay £280 to make sure I didn't even buy a copy of The Guardian on a daily basis. I wouldn't buy a jumper with the name written on it.
Maybe they finally discovered that capitalism is a good idea.
Well,
that's a low blow, but rather. But listen, all I want to know is what does Giles Brandreth have to say about this?
Well, you're a Guardian reader. Are you going to buy one of these ludicrously
I might possibly pay that not to wear it.
Yeah.
And apparently they're what's the word? They're produced in a very friendly way. There's no exploitation.
What, in Indonesia with child labour? No, but
no child labour.
Free-range sheep.
But there's an interesting
jumpers.
thing. Have you seen the logo they got written on the front? For fact's sake.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, ho.
I know, but I mean, this is egotism taken to an extreme length. When I was the popular star of TalkSport Radio, we sponsored a golf competition, and they put my face on the golf balls.
Oh, really?
So they said, "Come and smash Porky's face." You see what I mean, like this, and they were littered all over the golf course, and T-shirts with my face on it, and you know, I think it's great. But
Have
then
you
again,
still got them?
Sorry,
did you keep them for posterity? The T-shirts and the golf balls?
I've got them somewhere at home, you know. But
Scotland Yard still has a couple.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not against self-promotion. I think self-promotion is great, providing your product is worth self-promoting.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid they should do something with their overdraft, and they should do something with their editorial skills before they start producing jumpers, in my view.
It's just the free market. If people want to buy it, they can. If not, they won't.
I don't let 1,000 flowers bloom.
Exactly.
But hang on a second. The Guardian is actually quite a difficult paper to read nowadays. I don't know if you've...
Hang on.
I'm not talking about the content. The long read they have, and it's actually it's pretty impressive. However, there's now 4 bits to it. You have to take out a bit and then a bit and then a bit. I mean, I got no time for that. And you cannot read it on the train.
Right.
Well, let's move on to the
That's
other
not an editorial critique, by the way.
I mean, I do read the Guardian. I think it's interesting to find out different takes. And you know what the bias is. That's kind of the point.
That's why I read the Telegraph.
I take your point. I read the Mirror for that reason as well, to see what they're saying from the other side. You see what I mean?
I'm going to move on because obviously very interesting speech from Trump last night.
Amazing.
But before he arrived at the UN, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, was also trying to make his way to UNHQ in New York, and he had to stop because Trump's motorcade got in the way, and he had to get out of his presidential car, and this is what happened next.
How many people? Now I have 10 people with me. I go to the French embassy.
No. I'm sorry, President. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming late. That's why.
Guess what? I'm waiting the street because everything is frozen for you.
I know, the president of France getting on the phone, allegedly.
Can you imagine a typical cop in Washington? Yeah, buddy, and I'm the Queen of Sheba.
Yeah. Exactly. I bet he was speaking to the talking clock. I don't think for a second he got through that.
He talked to one of his own age, wouldn't he?
Of course he was.
And, you know, very impressive and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I've noticed since the president came to this country and since he's gone back? There is clearly a renewed love pact between Donald Trump and his wife. They are closer than ever. Have you not seen the way
they were together on the United Nations?
Exactly.
On the broken-down escalator.
And she is now incredibly supportive, whereas towards the end of his first term of office, she was walking around with slogans on the back of her coat saying nothing to do with me and all that kind of stuff. I think there is a renewed love affair going on there. She also dresses beautifully every time I see her.
She dressed as a hat stand.
No. You know nothing about it, Stephen.
Yeah.
Please do not try and comment on fashion on this show. You are the least fashionable person I've ever met.
I think he's quite smartly dressed.
You were going to say he's more fashionable than him, weren't you?
But what I'm saying is, she seems now to be incredibly proud to be the First Lady, whereas in her first term, she seemed to want to hide away as First Lady.
I think she's enjoying it.
I think she's enjoying it enormously.
Trump has a much clearer plan this time, doesn't he? And much more respectable people around him.
Here's the interesting thing about that speech to the United Nations. I don't know how you picked up on this. When he arrived at the United Nations, Ivanka's on the escalator. Suddenly everything stops.
Yes.
The escalators and the elevators broke down.
No, but he thinks it was sabotage.
Well, far be it from me to suggest such a thing. But then, when he comes on stage, the auto cue breaks down too.
Sabotage.
So can you imagine those ha-ha?
So he got his own back because he spoke for 57 minutes instead of 15, and he stuck it up all of them.
He did.
He really did.
Absolutely.
And then, if you read The Guardian this morning, you'll see that Labour MPs have urged Keir Starmer to reprimand Donald Trump for his comments about the Mayor of London. Can you imagine? I'm being reprimanded.
He's going to call him into his study and give him the lines or give him the belt.
This changes everything. I'm in it bigly wrong here.
I think it's funny, Mike, the warm glow of the state visit has barely worn off and Trump's gone in all guns blazing.
But I said this would happen. I said once he's got his state visit, and by the way, I think Downing Street did a brilliant job telling him, oh, by the way, Windsor Castle, far superior to the Mall and Buckingham Palace. What they meant was, it's not safe to put you out there in front of the public. So you're having the world's biggest living castle all to yourself. He's fallen for that.
What you say, the Premier Inn in Basingstoke is really, really good.
Absolutely. But the United Nations for years has been just a left-wing talking shop. When I lived and worked in New York, the one place you never wanted to go to work was the United Nations because it was so boring, because nothing ever happened there, and it was full of really poor, rejected politicians from their own country.
And I loved his dismissal of it as all he does is write letters.
Brilliant. Exactly. Absolutely. A talking shop. That's what it is. And that's good.
Hang on a second. Mike, that wasn't always the case. I mean, when you had Uthant and Dag Hammarskjöld, don't forget, they pretty much, remember when Patrice Lumumba was assassinated in the first Congo War? The United Nations with the blueberries went in there, and countries, neutral countries like Ireland, would actually send troops into it. The United Nations in the past was a very strong peacekeeping... I
couldn't even tell you the name of the current General Secretary.
No, neither could I.
Guterres.
I didn't know that.
Didn't you? Well, we're rather better educated. Because
we read The Guardian.
You read The Guardian. Exactly.
Stephen, if you look at the history of the United Nations, it's always just been a left-wing talking shop. They were the first...
it was set up by a Republican-American president.
To Yasser Arafat.
I'm not sure this is a left-right issue, although it has become one. Essentially, this is a battle between, do you believe in this kind of global liberal idea that we should all... cooperate with this rules-based order that should go around the world and supersede national sovereignty, or should we go back to an order that's based on the nation-state being sovereign? And that's what Trump wants.
Trump says America first, and what's wrong with that? Very popular.
It's very popular in America.
And he's also slashed the amount of money he gives to the US.
This is slightly right. I mean, I think that you can only solve the problems of the world on a global basis, and I think isolationism isn't the answer. I'm sorry.
Well, whenever has spreading one particular ideology around the world worked? I would call it imperialism. I think it's a time we forgot about that.
90% of the world now, you actually have, women have the vote, which, 50 years ago they didn't.
But the whole basis on which we opened up the economy, let China into the WTO, was on the idea that they'd become a liberal democracy. Well, that's worked out.
Well, you're absolutely right. Capitalism was supposed to solve everything. I was the very first person to be served a quarter pounder in McDonald's in Red Square in Moscow, because I was taken out there by the McDonald's team, OK? Because I was head of news at an organisation here. I got the very first one, and the McDonald's guy, head of Europe McDonald's, said, this will save the world. He predicted that introducing capitalism into Russia after the fall of the Berlin Wall would mean that people would so enjoy the capitalist world, they'll do anything to protect it. And, of course, that worked out well, didn't it?
25 years of Putin.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, I'll see your McDonald's and I'll raise you, because I opened the first Nando's anywhere in the United Kingdom when I was the mayor of Ely.
Wow.
That's my contribution to global culture and cuisine.
Did they give you a free meal?
Yes, they did, but I wasn't actually too enamoured of it.
No, I bet you weren't.
I've been to Nando's once.
Wasn't it easier when I mean, this is a terrible thing to say, but when the wall was there, the world was easier. Miriam, you've just been outlining the way the world's made up now. In those days, it was first world, second world and third world, wasn't it? I mean, the first world was
BBC,
the West capitalism,
ITV.
the second was Russia, and the third was the rest.
We need to quickly move on to a much more serious story about Cheltenham Ladies' Day.
Indeed. I love Cheltenham. I've been going there for 25 years, and I love the first day because I traditionally, sorry I keep boasting about things I do, I traditionally have to have the first pint of Guinness in the Guinness Village on the opening of the bar at 10 o'clock on day one.
The Guinness Village, that's the sort of place I'd like to retire to.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's happened at Cheltenham?
So what's happened is they brought back Ladies' Day.
Quite right. You'd never have got rid of it.
I'm sorry. We mustn't drown out the only woman on the panel.
Well, no, of course
I'm not particularly interested in Ladies' Day.
Why did they get rid of it in the first place? It was completely ridiculous.
Oh, because it was sexist. Because it was sexist. But you know what I hate about some of our colleagues in this business? When it's Ladies' Day at Ascot, it's all elegant ladies like Miriam dressed in fine clothes, OK?
With fascinators, whatever
when
they
we
are.
have Ladies' Day at Aintree,
I know where you're going with
let me tell you, it's pictures of girls lying around on the floor, drunk with their underwear exposed and all this. And to me,
come on, quick final word.
You should see the Melbourne Gold Cup. But look, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a bit silly to have Ladies' Day and this day and that day.
I don't.
Just let people go down. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Cheltenham is for the Irish. End of.
Yeah, but ladies like getting dressed up at race meetings.
On that
it's an Irish.
We better move on to the 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Aside from McDonald's, Nando's and Ladies' Day also making the headlines this hour, energy watchdog Ofgem is forcing suppliers to offer at least one tariff with lower standing charges from January, but warns bills won't necessarily fall with costs simply shifted elsewhere. Campaigners call it only a small step as charges remain unfair for low energy users. In New York, Donald Trump says Ukraine can now win back all its original borders. A sharp U-turn after talks with President Zelensky. The US leader branded Russia a paper tiger as NATO vowed to hit back at escalating airspace violations. UK's new AI fraud buster has clawed back nearly £500 million in just a year, much of it lost during COVID. Ministers say the savings will fund nurses, teachers and police, though critics warn of risks in rolling the tool out abroad. Travel chaos at Stansted this morning. Trains halted, roads gridlocked and a small lounge fire adding to the disruption. The airport's urging passengers to check before they travel. Jimmy Kimmel has returned to late-night TV after his suspension, tearfully insisting he never meant to make light of Charlie Kirk's murder. But he blasted Trump's attempts to silence him, calling it un-American. And nearly 2 million people are evacuated in China as Super Typhoon Regasa, the world's strongest storm this year, has slammed in after killing 14 in Taiwan. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Don't go anywhere because coming up next, tax inspectors have already started raiding the bank accounts of those who choose not to pay their bills.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any mist or fog this morning should clear away quite readily, leaving another dry day. Plenty of sunny spells. Temperatures will be around about average, but still feeling that little bit cooler where you catch the brisk breeze. Now, there could be some cloud around this morning, particularly across northern and central parts of England. This could be thick enough to produce a very light shower at times, but you should be quite unlucky if you do catch any of those, because for most, it's a dry day, a mix of cloud, plenty of sunny spells, quite breezy at times around coasts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent, but this is where we'll see the best of the temperatures, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius, but around the mid-teens elsewhere. Now through into the evening, it could still be fairly breezy across parts of the southeast. This could drag in some more cloud as we finish off the day, but elsewhere across England and Wales, a mix of clear skies and some patchy cloud. Fairly similar elsewhere across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and through into Scotland as well. But once again, western coast of Scotland still could be quite breezy even as we finish off the day. And through the course of the night, it should remain mostly dry, but we could still see plenty of clear skies. And with light winds, that means we're likely to see some more mist and fog develop, particularly as we head our way towards dawn, mainly around rural areas and through into any valleys. But more clouds starting to push into the southeast, so not turning quite as chilly here and leading into a bit more of a cloudier start. But once again, under any clear skies, we could see some isolated frost develop, but most towns and cities remaining in the mid to high single figures. So a mostly bright start as we head into Thursday. More cloud across the southeast, but this should lift and break, particularly as we head into the afternoon. Still fairly breezy around southeastern coasts and similar across western coasts of Scotland. Quite breezy here with some more cloud feeding through. But for most, it's going to be a dry day, plenty of sunny spells and still feeling pleasant in the sunshine with highs reaching around 18 to 19 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Significant road disruptions this morning include the M8 westbound exit at junction 25A, closed for works. Follow the diversion and allow extra travel time. Near Doncaster, a collision on the M18 between junctions 3 and 4 has closed one lane, causing half an hour of delays. In Norfolk, congestion on the A11 northbound between the A1075 and the A47 adds 10 minutes. The A14 eastbound in Northamptonshire between junctions 1 Welford and 2 Kelmarsh has delays due to a broken down vehicle closing one lane. And on the trains, expect disruption on cross-country services to and from Stansted Airport. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 21 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, the HMRC, we used to call it the Treasury, didn't we, have admitted that tax inspectors, get this, have started raiding bank accounts of people who have not paid their bills for perhaps often a good reason.
Well, it may be surprising, but the taxman can claim money directly from people who owe more than £1,000 under these new direct recovery powers.
Introduced by the blimmin' Tories.
I think so, and enacted by Labour. They can also claim back overpaid benefits as well in the same way. Well, we're now joined by the money reporter for The Telegraph, Madeline Ross, who's written up this story this morning. Madeline, thank you so much for joining us. I think viewers will be quite surprised that the government, HMRC, is allowed to do this. How long has this been going on?
Well, the powers were introduced in 2015, so they're not actually new, and you're right that they were introduced under the last Conservative government. But they weren't used during the pandemic. I think the government was worried that people would become more vulnerable because they weren't at work, so they weren't used then, but they are now being reintroduced. It's part of the Chancellor's spring statement push to crack down on tax evasion and avoidance. She's looking to raise £1 billion by doing this, and it is just one of a number of measures that the government is considering or already taking in order to crack down on those not paying their tax bills.
So, Madeline, do HMRC let people know in advance they're going to go in and raid their bank account? Maybe they're going to take £2,000, £5,000 or a lot more, or do people just find out when they get their bank statement?
No, so there are quite strict safeguards in place for this measure, and it was actually only used 19 times in 2 years, although 22,000 taxpayers were identified as potentially having these powers used against them. They must visit you in person before they do this.
Right.
That is the rule.
OK, so people would have warning. Have the banks, when this legislation was introduced, did the banks try to push back on this at all? Because people will worry that their money is not secure. And, of course, HMRC, whilst people should absolutely pay their tax bill, HMRC are not unknown to make mistakes, are they?
Absolutely right.
Well, actually, there are similar powers being considered by the DWP at the moment for benefit claimants, where there are errors or fraud being suspected by the DWP. And the banks are pushing back on that because they're worried about the practical implications, how they're going to administer that, and also the equality implications of only doing this to benefit claimants. Of course, these powers that HMRC are now using again can be used against anyone who owes more than £1,000, but they must leave £5,000 in a bank account to make sure that people can still cover their rent, their mortgage, and their day-to-day costs. I imagine the banks, as with many things, anything that adds to their workload, that makes their lives more difficult, they won't love. And they also know that their customers don't like powers like this, so are unlikely to support them that fully. That being said, everyone has a duty to pay the right amount of tax, and HMRC has a statutory obligation to ensure that that's happening, and that's what they're trying to do here. It's all about a balance of powers.
I get that, Madeleine, but some people who have not paid their tax bills have not paid their tax because they don't accept the amount HMRC want. And if HMRC then go in and get it, it's almost impossible then. Maybe they win their case and they're right. It's so much more difficult to get the money back.
Yes, so this particular power can only be used once the appeals process has been exhausted. So people will have the opportunity to challenge HMRC if they think HMRC has got its numbers wrong. Tax experts told The Telegraph last night that they were worried because HMRC does get things wrong, and we know that because we see them coming out of the tribunals. But this power, although it might be threatened earlier in the proceedings, they can only take the money out of the account once the appeals process has been exhausted.
So once there's no prospect of overturning the decision. I think the headline will worry people, but on the other hand, tax evasion worries people too. Does the government have any plans to expand this power, or do you think it will remain a last resort?
I think this is a last resort, and a report in 2019 found that while it was effective as a deterrent, it was very rarely used itself. There are other powers which are being introduced, which are similar but not exactly the same, which encourage banks to share data with HMRC and more accurate data as well, so that other forms of evasion and avoidance can be cracked down on. For example, savings accounts will have to have a national insurance number associated with them from 2027, so that the banks and HMRC can match up their records more accurately. I think that for people who write into us and for the bank's customers, there's always a concern about what data is being shared about you and about how much money you have and where that money is coming from. But this is the way that the government is going, and unfortunately, there's not a lot to do to stop them.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, very interesting story.
But, Madeleine, thank you so much for that, and congratulations on your story. At least there are lots of safeguards there. Yeah. And I'm glad that it is after the appeal process has been exhausted.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because in a pre-banking world where people had their assets in cash, bailiffs would just come in and take it if you owed it. This is the modern-day equivalent, but it feels a lot more sinister.
And tax evasion is illegal.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't forget that. Now, up next, energy companies will have to offer tariffs with lower standing charges under plans unveiled by the regulator Ofgem, but charities say it's concerning and it's probably going to end up costing people more money. That would be typical, wouldn't it?
It would. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations forecast.
Western and central parts of Europe will start to see any heavy downpours easing away, though some scattered showers will still remain. That's not so much the case across the Canary Islands, Madeira, also Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, largely dry, plenty of sunny spells. But across France, even into parts of Germany, we could still see some isolated showers remain. But through Italy, the Adriatic coastline and also parts of Greece remaining settled, dry with sunny spells, though we could start to see more showers over the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's coming up for 10 to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So all energy suppliers in Britain are going to need to introduce at least one lower standing charge tariff by the end of January. That's according to the regulator Ofgem.
But charities say that the policy is disappointing, and they've warned that it doesn't address the issue of high bills. Well, to break this down for us, we're joined now by consumer and retail expert Helen Judeney. Helen, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Now, this idea of having a different kind of tariff is specifically for people who don't use much energy, and therefore for whom the standing charge makes up a large proportion of their bills. Surely it's a good idea to give them an option to pay less.
Well, the thing is, we need to be clear that the standing charge is something that varies across the country. We've got no control over it, and we have to pay it at the moment. And there's been a lot of call for changes in that. And you're right that if you have a standing charge, it's the same whatever, and that these proposed changes mean that if the standing charge is lower and you use less energy and that unit cost is less, then it's going to benefit you. But there's concern that people who use more energy will not benefit. And although there will be alternative tariffs, it's all about just moving the chairs and tables, really, and whether people who are more vulnerable are less likely to switch between tariffs and go onto certain fixed tariffs. So there's a lot about that, about whether people will be able to access it or know that it's actually available.
What are the standing charges for, really, Helen? I mean, they just have always struck me as being just a total rip-off.
It's about storage and moving energy around the place. So it's quite technical about how they do that.
Now, Helen, although there are going to be these different tariffs available, and people should obviously check very carefully which one is the best for them, there is still this problem of very high underlying energy bills. They've almost doubled in the last 5 or 6 years in this country. And a lot of the blame is being put on taxes and environmental levies, but also redistribution, taking money off wealthier ratepayers in order to reduce the cost of energy for people on lower incomes. Do you think there is a magic bullet here? Is there any way of reducing our energy bills in the short to medium term?
You're right, it's really difficult because the about the winter fuel allowance, that we're paying that through our bills. We're paying for as you say, the levy for the government climate change. That's all coming out of our bills. That's put onto those businesses. And I don't think there is a magic bullet, because if there was, somebody would have done it. I think with the warm house discount, we know, 8 million people using that. There's a heck of a lot of people there that don't need it. So they were throwing the baby out with the bathwater there. But I think if people think they're going to go into debt, or that they are in debt, really it's trying to get help to you before you go into debt. But do speak to your energy company, because there are things they can do. They may have grants. And also they can help you, spend it a little bit differently over your bills. But also, if you are going into debt, go into contact Citizens Advice, Turn to Us, or National Debt Line, because they all do different things. They can tell you.
Helen, I'm so sorry, we are out of time. Going to have to leave it there. Don't go anywhere, though. We're going to the Lib Thames later on, but your weather first.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any low cloud, mist or fog clearing quite readily through the course of the morning, leaving a mostly dry day with sunny spells and temperatures around about average for the time of year, so still feeling rather chilly in the brisk breeze. But the reason for the dry settle conditions is all thanks to high pressure, and it stops this front moving too far inland, though we could just start to see more cloud push into the far northwest of Scotland later. Also a fair amount of cloud across northern and central parts of England, a chance this could produce the odd light shower, but for most a dry day with sunny spells, temperatures around about average, so just pushing into 17, possibly 18, 19 degrees across parts of the southeast, but around the mid-teens elsewhere. Now, it could be fairly breezy for a time, particularly across East Anglian coasts, parts of Sussex and Kent, but those winds will largely ease away through the course of the evening, remaining mostly dry and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales. A mix of cloud and also some clearer skies across Northern Ireland, and fairly similar conditions across Scotland too, though once again it could be fairly breezy across parts of the northwest, some more cloud starting to edge its way into far western coasts of Scotland. But otherwise it should remain dry through the overnight period, but with fairly light winds and clear skies, it's likely to be another chilly night. Some localised frost, particularly in western areas, and also a chance once again we could see some low cloud and mist and fog as we head our way towards dawn. Less so across parts of the southeast, some more cloud pushing in here, so temperatures won't get quite as chilly, but many towns and cities dropping to around the mid to high single figures. So it is going to be a fairly chilly start once again, but any mist or fog clearing quite quickly through the course of the morning, and it should be a fairly similar day, remaining mostly dry. Less chance of some showers, though a chance of some very light rain just pushing it into the far northwest. Still quite breezy here at times too. Fairly similar temperatures to what we'll see this afternoon, but we could just push into 20 degrees Celsius across the southeast.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 24th of September, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Well, that was just one of the many bold claims made by Donald Trump as he addressed the UN in an astonishing hour-long speech full of challenges for European leaders.
The US President also took the opportunity to reaffirm his views on the London Mayor, Sir Sadiq Khan.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
Well, in response to that, Labour MPs have urged Sir Keir Starmer to take action over those inflammatory comments, and the Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden told GB News that Donald Trump had misread our great capital city.
London, our capital city, is a great place. It's known around the world. We have British law here at Selhurst Park this morning, no other kind of law, and that's what applies in our capital city and throughout our country.
That's right. Days ahead of the Labour Party conference, Labour MPs urge Keir Starmer to step in and rally around Sadiq Khan over claims of Sharia law in London.
And in another blow to Keir Starmer, leaked emails reveal that Labour's lawyer advised the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, to describe £700,000 in unreported donations as an admin error.
Gun laws are rolled back, so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America, don't let it become Farage's Britain.
So that was in his conference speech, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey warning that a reform UK government would roll back gun laws and increase the risk of American-style school massacres. But is that fair?
And in a victory on the war on woke, Cheltenham Festival is bringing back Ladies' Day for the first time in 7 years after ditching it for Style Wednesday. It's an extraordinary speech by Ed Davey. He just talked about Farage and Trump.
But what basis has he got to say Nigel Farage is going to chase gun laws? I've never heard anybody in Reform talk about changing the possession of guns laws in this country, ever.
I think Farage made a comment some years ago about gun licensing and things like that, but it's quite extraordinary to extrapolate that into the assumption that they're going to change gun laws and then that it would cause a school massacre. I mean, it is kind of searching for headlines there, really.
And pretty horrible and pretty reckless, particularly just after the assassination.
Yeah.
In America.
Right.
Now, as ever, we'd like to hear what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom just after 11 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, Ofgem has confirmed that energy suppliers must offer at least one tariff with lower standing charges from January, though the fixed costs won't be scrapped entirely. The regulator says the move will give households more choice on how they pay by shifting some of the daily fee into unit rates. It follows consumer pressure to reform the changes and charges which are applying regardless of how much energy people use. Campaigners say the change is, though, only a small step forward as bills are still set to rise by 2% in October. Ofgem will now consult before final approval, aiming to roll out the new tariffs nationwide by January. A leaked Labour document shows that Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff was told to describe £700,000 of undeclared donations as an admin error. The advice came from the party's lawyer in 2021 after the elections watchdog said the funds should have been reported. The Conservatives are demanding an investigation, accusing the Prime Minister of failing to declare support from Labour Together. The think tank, once led by Morgan McSweeney, was fined for more than 20 breaches. But speaking this morning, Senior Minister Pat McFadden told us that the issue was dealt with, he says, years ago, and insists McSweeney will remain in post.
I'm not surprised that political opponents are trying to attack Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff at Number 10. He's very effective. He was a big part of Labour's election victory last year. So I'm not surprised they're attacking him, but the Electoral Commission's job is to police all these things, and they said they looked into it some years ago.
Donald Trump has reignited his feud with Sadiq Khan, branding the London mayor terrible and claiming the city, he says, wants to go to Sharia law. Labour's dismissed that attack, saying the president was misreading London, stressing it remains a global hub of law, culture and creativity. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, though, backed Trump's concerns, saying Sharia is an issue for London, but not an overwhelming one. It comes after Trump's state visit avoided London, with engagements held in Windsor and Chequers instead.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that.
In other news this morning, the government has recovered nearly £500 million in just a year using a new AI fraud detection tool. More than a third of that money was linked to COVID fraud, including bounce-back loans. Ministers say the savings will be spent on nurses, teachers and police officers. The Cabinet Office has called it the biggest fraud recovery ever. One case even saw a fake company funneling loan cash to Poland. But campaigners warn the government's growing use of AI risks bias and threatens civil liberties. Travel chaos at Stansted Airport this morning as all train services both in and out of terminals have been cancelled or disrupted. Cross-country and Greater Anglia routes are affected, with drivers also facing major hold-ups. It comes after a small fire broke out in the airport's lounge overnight. The blaze was quickly put out, though, no one injured, but security queues are still facing disruption. Jimmy Kimmel has returned to late-night TV, emotional but defiant after his week-long suspension over remarks about Charlie Kirk's killing. He insisted he never meant to make light of the murder, praising Erica Kirk's selfless act of grace at her husband's memorial. But he turned his anger on Donald Trump, calling the president's attempts to silence him as un-American and dangerous. Almost 70 of ABC's affiliates, owned by Sinclair and Nexstar, refused to air the comeback, leaving a quarter of US homes without the broadcast. And nearly 2 million people have been evacuated from southern China as super typhoon Regassa has closed in. Dubbed the king of storms, it is expected to dump a month's worth of rain in just one day. The equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane, Regassa is the strongest storm in the world so far this year. It's already tore through Taiwan, where 14 or 15 estimated people were killed. More than 100 remain missing. The typhoon has already battered the Philippines, Hong Kong and southern China, with days of heavy rain expected and more fierce winds. You're up to date just after 11 o'clock. I'll be back in half an hour. Next, though, I believe we can head back to Andrew and Miriam.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, he's done it again, hasn't he, the President of the United States? Caused shockwaves, not particularly to Miriam and I, has to be said, because when he speaks, he likes to cause shockwaves. But you could see the faces of those grey men and women at the UN General Assembly. They didn't like it, as he effectively told them that their countries were going to hell.
When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did. They repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Well, the president didn't stop there. He took the opportunity to take further swipes at his old enemy, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and he also toughened his stance on Moscow, telling Ukraine to shoot down Russian planes if they get too close. Well, we're now joined by GB News political editor Christopher Hope. Now, Chopper, we could make a whole podcast just on that speech yesterday. There was so much in it, so many different sources of offence to European leaders. What do you think European leaders, the UN, will take away from his outburst?
I think the biggest thing is probably saying shoot down Russian jets. That matters, and that suggests US support for any military action. Of course, the incursion in Estonia airspace for a few seconds last week is a warning to Putin, and they even met Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. Clearly that went very well, and it looks like Trump's coming around to a position where Europe is, and that's a good thing.
That's a dramatic change, isn't it?
That is a big deal.
The way he spoke to Zelensky in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Was it February this year?
He's come round to the position where we all are, I think, as a country, supporting Ukraine as best we can on national footing. The attack on Sadiq Khan, I mean, this goes back to the Trump blimp back in 2017 when he came then. I mean, it's a bit of handbags. It's a no-cost row. It's not going to damage a special relationship.
Very entertaining.
He's the most senior elected Labour politician outside of the government. It won't damage Keir Starmer. West Streeting's piled in saying Sadiq Khan is not trying to impose Sharia law in London, in case we've got any doubt of that. Rosina Allen Khan calling for Warren Stevens, the US ambassador, to be called to account. And earlier, Pat McFadden, who, of course, the old warhorse now now in charge of work and pensions. He told us this.
London, our capital city, is a great place. It's known around the world. We have British law here at Selhurst Park this morning, no other kind of law, and that's what applies in our capital city and throughout our country.
OK, there's Pat McFadden earlier. The irony for me, of course, I was yesterday in Bournemouth at the Lib Dem conference. They started 10 minutes late, and I'm saying, guys, Trump's up very soon. And then, as soon as Trump pops up, news channels, including GBNews, go straight to him for that electric speech. And all of the attacks on Trump, which you heard from Davey, weren't heard outside of the hall. To remind you, on Trump, he mentioned him 11 times. Trump's America. Farage's Britain 10 times. Trump got 24 mentions in the conference speech. Nigel Farage 30 times. Have a guess how many Kevin Badenoch got?
None? One?
One.
No.
Keir Starmer?
5.
0.
No.
So you've got this Lib Dem leader trying to have a tilt at the main... What is he up to? He's trying to win over One Nation Tories leaving the Tory party and attacking Trump and Farage over and over and over again. And then, of course, the irony is that Trump big-footed his big speech.
He certainly did.
They're in a very strange position electorally, the Lib Dems. They got fewer votes than Reform, but many, many times more seats.
72.
But
imagine they backed PR. Imagine they supported proportional representation to stop that happening. Imagine if that happened.
Well, indeed, but after the next election, it's quite possible that they may hold the balance of power. Potentially, they could form a coalition with Labour if Reform don't get enough seats.
That just wasn't denied, Miriam. So we would say, we asked Davey on my interview with Davey, and normally, as a political editor, I interview all the party leaders. We'll see what happens next week with Labour, but so far, that's happened so far. But I asked him, would you do a deal to keep out Farage? And, of course, even despite all that awful memory of the coalition 2010-2015, he talked about national interest, not ruling it out. But we have got a clip.
And don't forget, Ed Davey rather enjoyed being a cabinet minister.
Didn't he? Yes, apart from the post office issue. Let's move on from that. But let's have a quick clip of how many times, or let's see the repetitive nature of the word Farage from the lips of the Lib Dem leader.
Farage, Nigel Farage, Farage, Nigel Farage.
That is just a clip, a small amount of Farage's emerging from the lips
again and again how Nigel Farage is dominating and setting the political agenda.
Living rent-free in their brains with 5 MPs.
And also, the left love to claim that the right are always fear-mongering, but that was pure fear-mongering. The kind of allegations he made about a Reform government, there are plenty of things that surely he can criticise them on, but the things that he chose to claim, that they would reform gun laws, that are just completely baseless.
Talking about that we would have American-style school massacres here if Nigel Farage is Prime Minister.
And saying that, because of Farage, schools will have to practice lockdown drills. They already do that. They've been doing that for years. Does he not know that?
So he said, don't let Trump's America become Farage's Britain. They want gun laws rolled back so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of mass shooting.
But they do this already, every
Reform
year.
say that's not the intention of the policy. I should say that back in 2014, Nigel Farage did attack the gun laws and so they should be looked at again. So it is based on something he did say in the past.
It was 11 years ago.
But to be fair to the Lib Dems, we had criticised them for their U-turn on tuition fees, and that was 15 years ago. And these MPs, particularly ones who haven't been vetted properly or looked at properly, I would say, and that includes Farage, need to stand by their record and clarify what they mean. That's all he's doing.
I remember pointing out that Liz Truss, when she spoke at a Lib Dem conference as a student, called for the abolition of the monarchy.
And I bet you raised that 20 years later somewhere.
I did.
There we go.
So there we are. Yeah, so
well,
I
think politicians, of course, should be held to account for their record, but they should also be able to change their mind. But to make a claim that a Farage government would do this to gun laws when Farage made a private comment about his view on licensing is slightly stretching.
It wasn't private, it was in The Guardian, it was reported.
No, but as in, he wasn't making that claim as the leader of Reform UK, which did not even exist in 2014.
A different party called UKIP.
Yeah.
Well...
and we've got Labour conference. Is Morgan McSweeney going to be a big issue still for Starmer by the time he gets to Liverpool?
Hasn't gone away.
McSweeney will go with him.
It's the front page of a newspaper today about this. It goes back to his time at Labour Together. There's leaked emails the Daily Mail has seen from a lawyer suggesting it can be brushed away, the issue of not declaring donations as an admin issue. Labour say clearly it was looked at by the Electoral Commission, so it's all moved on.
What they didn't know about the...
No, the email is new, and I think the Tory chairman and Kevin Hollinrake moments ago is planning more revelations today. This could become an issue dogging the party into the conference.
And very quickly, very important question. You are a political party junkie. Which party's members are the best dressed?
Oh, I think Labour are quite smart now. It used to be cardigans in the Corbyn era, but they put on a suit for government, look quite smart. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Were there many sandals at the Lib Dem conference?
There's a few, a few holdalls, a few, the odd sandal. But I think the Lib Dems,
you have to have sandals at a Lib Dem conference.
We're a democracy, Andrew. Can't they exist?
I do think
it's
you
fine.
can tell the party that someone belongs to by how they dress, definitely.
Yes. Or how serious they are about getting any government. That's
well,
the point.
that's also
That's
true.
the point.
Boy, we're going to talk to a Lib Dem now. He's Pablo O'Hara is a former Lib Dem senior advisor. Pablo, are we being unfair in slightly mocking the Lib Dems for wearing sandals? Have you got any sandals?
Pablo looks very smart, we should say.
Yeah, I have actually never seen sandals at Lib Dem conference, but I will concede.
Oh, you haven't been going to many enough conferences.
I don't think they have it anymore, but they used to have one of the images on the membership card. You could choose someone wearing sandals with yellow socks, which not my vibe, but I will concede that it did exist.
Well, shall we get on to the serious politics? And quite an extraordinary speech made by Ed Davey yesterday, very much focused on what he perceives the danger that a Farage government would make to Britain. Do you think he was fair in his criticisms of Farage and reform?
I do, and I think one of the interesting things, and you guys might have seen this as well, is, I mean, you talked there about how much Ed Davey mentioned Nigel Farage and reform, and there is not an insignificant chance that the next election will be a Lib Dem reform fight. I mean, Labour and Conservatives, we all know, are just collapsing at the moment. You know, I'm not saying this is a given, but I don't think it's that surprising that actually both at the Reform Conference and at the Dem Conference that they are sort of kind of coming at each other and are sort of seeing each other as the antidote to each other. So I think that it's not that surprising that Ed Davey went for Farage, and I do think that, you know, to his credit, Farage is incredibly successful at opening the door, letting in the draft for things that people feel passionate about, whether it's immigration and Brexit. You know, today he had some slightly questionable comments about paracetamol and autism, but one thing you can't argue with, as I say, is Farage's ability to open that door. Ed Davey's job in this speech was to show voters what's on the other side of that door and keep it slammed shut, especially on gun laws. So, you know, he did his job as leader. I think he met the moment. I didn't find it sort of surprising that he went for the jugular with Nigel Farage.
Was it really fair, though, to depict what Farage may have said 11 years ago about gun control with what's happening in America, where we have, regrettably, school massacres on a regular basis because it is widely reported there are more guns in America than there are people, and the population of America is 330 million?
Yes, and I will say, having, you know, I worked on Kamala Harris's campaign, and the gun epidemic in America is real and it's grim. I do think that it is fair to hold Nigel Farage accountable. If he wants to distance himself from those comments, then he could come out right now and do so.
He already has. I think he already has, and said that he has no intention for a reform government to change gun law.
But he is importing the division and the kind of rhetoric from America. He has aligned himself incredibly close to Trump. If he wants to come out and make it absolutely clear, and he wants to define policies that will do that and explicitly argue against that, then he can do. But I don't think that it is unfair for Ed Davey to compare what Nigel Farage has done his whole career and expose that Nigel Farage, you know, is incredibly close to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's America has a lot of issues, healthcare, gun laws being two fairly major ones that are very, very different to us over here in the UK. And so, you know, that is what leaders do. They say, this is the vision that they're presenting, this is the vision that we're presenting. You know, as you guys said before, people love to remind of all the mistakes that the Liberal Democrats did 10, 15 years ago, even though they have consistently distanced themselves and kind of walked away from it. So, you know, I think Ed Davey did what he needed to do as leader, which is warn about those real world consequences of a very serious policy drift.
Do you think we should take the Lib Dems more seriously? There is sometimes a temptation, certainly in the last Parliament, when there are very few Lib Dem MPs, to make a little joke about it. Ed Davey doesn't help himself by engaging in these quite extraordinary stunts. Here we've got a picture of him on a paddleboard. But they could hold the balance of power at the next election. They could potentially, he's just fallen off, have to negotiate.
He threw himself in the water. He didn't fall off at all.
They could have to negotiate a coalition. We should be paying attention to what their policies are, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, the stunts, gosh, everyone's had their hot take on them, haven't they? But the stunts, they do have a serious message behind it. And I think that, we should be allowed to say that it's okay to smile in politics. I think it's very easy because everyone has their different positions on various policies, or they support a different party. But we're allowed to say that at the end of the day, that's our country. And that we should be really proud that our country has lots of different parties, whether it's Reform, Labour, Lib Dem, Conservative, the Green Party. It's okay for us to disagree, but also to have a bit of fun doing it. And I think if Ed Davey wants to build a sandcastle or fall off a paddleboard whilst talking about, sewage in rivers or whatever, I think that's fine. I think that there is a serious message. Well, I know there's a serious message behind each of those, and to say that we can disagree whilst smiling, whilst enjoying politics as well, and making sure that it's not just divisive. But yes, to your point, it is important. I mean, we've had this issue before where the Lib Dems are kind of pushed aside, and then suddenly everyone kind of scrambles because they become important again. I would say this obviously, but I do think that it is important to keep an eye on them because, as you say, they could be kingmakers in the next election, and they have learnt from previous experience. I think you'll find that they'll be a lot stronger in negotiations, and their red lines will be a lot clearer. If I was one of the big parties, or even Nigel Farage, you would want to pay attention as to what they're talking about. And of course,
Pablo, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks very much for your insight this morning. That's Pablo Ohana, former Lib Dem advisor.
Who has no sandals?
Up next,
the US talk show host Jimmy Kimmel defended free speech and addressed his comments on the killing of Charlie Kirk, which he mocked, frankly, the other night in an emotional return to the airwaves.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:25. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And they're back, the panel, Mike Parry and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Mike Parry.
We've been resuscitated.
Yes. Now, we were going to talk to you about... what were we talking about? Jimmy Kimmel, weren't we?
Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
Didn't last long, did it?
No, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us what's happening.
Were you taken in by his tears, his emotional return?
No, this is the broadcasting establishment in America saying to Donald Trump, up you, Trump, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, much of the broadcasting establishment in America is very anti-Trump. That's why Fox stands out, if you see what I mean. It's like a beacon of light in an otherwise very, very Democrat-loaded industry. And they couldn't believe that Jimmy Kimmel had even been disciplined or spoken to about what he said in the wake
Mike, we can actually show viewers what was said. Here we go. Take a listen.
Yep.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was...
Well, two things about that, surely. Firstly, when somebody's been killed, a father of a couple of young kids, you don't make jokes about it.
What's funny about it?
Exactly. The point I'm saying, it was irrelevant, it was unpleasant, and it was inappropriate. End of that.
Yes.
However, what fascinates me about this was it wasn't Trump, but his appointed director of the Federal Communications System who actually pulled the plug on it, which is unheard of. Now, that is actually a very dangerous precedent. If politicians can start pulling the plug, they could do it to you.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
That's what happened. Oh, you agree?
No, I do agree.
In that case, I must be wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, he accused Donald Trump and the Republicans of trying to politicise the grief following the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But where I have concerns about this story is the complete flip-flop of opinion in 72 hours. I mean, again, I thought, I'm not sure anybody should be censored for what they say on American TV, directly from the instruction of a politician, as you quite rightly said, Stephen. But then I thought, well, if you've done it, you better stick to it. No way. They just flip-flopped after 72 hours, and now everybody who was trying to defend Kimmel has won.
I think the best form of actually criticising is just not watching. And I think ultimately the best form of censorship is not watching.
Yes, but Donald Trump said that has already happened with Kimmel.
But what is extraordinary about this is, first of all, I felt that this was, the Trump Federal Communications Committee, all that using their power. And then it seems to be the other way back. So either Trump doesn't know or Trump's changed his mind, because I cannot believe that he wasn't complicit in this. He would have said, take him off the air, the man's terrible, terrible.
Exactly, I agree.
And so it's starting to come back. But it's also Kimmel, who, I mean, people in Los Angeles, when you come to just on Sunset Strip, there's this massive, great billboard, still to this day, the Jimmy Kimmel Show here every Friday.
I agree.
He's big. But most of us in this country, until then, probably never heard of him.
No, we hadn't.
But also, Mike, just on a semi-serious point, when I actually heard the eulogy that Jimmy Kimmel's, that Charlie Kirk's wife said for him at that funeral, when she said she forgave his killers, that was one of the most profound Christian moments I think I've ever seen on national television. It was superb. And I think anything that detracts from that incredible, pure moment, not just pure emotion, but pure... I mean, I use the word Christian because that's the way I see it.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, that was a beautiful... And I think Jimmy Kimmel, just go away, man. Just go away.
Trump will hate this because, of course, he said from the start, I had nothing to do with Kimmel going. His ratings were very low. That's why they took him off.
That's the criteria.
And, of course, his quote when he had got it back is, I can't believe the comedian got his job back, you know? So he was absolutely...
Shall we move back to the UK?
Yes.
And there's a story in the Telegraph explaining that Sir Keir Starmer is going to attempt to reclaim the flag from far-right protesters.
Makes you laugh.
In a speech at conference, I assume, Labour conference, about tackling the rise of divisive populism.
Since when has the Labour Party been wrapping themselves in flags until this present administration of theirs? Can I give you a bit of history on this? This all started in 1996 because England and Scotland were drawn together in the same group in the European Championship being played in this country. So to differentiate the teams, the Scots brought the old Saltaire down, so England had to get out the flag of St George. That's the first time we saw it. The competition was called Bringing Football Home, which I penned because I was working at the Football Association at the time. That was my expression. And then the the song came out, didn't it? It's Coming Home, right?
Frank Skinner wrote that, I thought.
No. Yeah, they wrote the song.
David Baddiel.
David Baddiel. But I gave them the expression, football's coming home, right?
But I also love the idea that St George, who was a Turkish Roman soldier, who's got no connection with this country whatsoever. But look, the thing is, just take you back to 1946 for a moment, when Ernest Bevin, great Labour man, was the Foreign Secretary, and we're talking about the first missile, and he says, I don't care where it's made as long as it's got a Union Jack on the nose cone. So think about this country. I don't think that we in this country need to parade our patriotism.
Well, we haven't done
when the chips are down, we will stand up for this country.
We
don't have to wave the flag.
I think the Tommy Robinson, march, and I've got no great, admiration for Tommy Robinson, but what I'm saying is a lot of people assembled, and from the reports I read, 90% of them were normal people. They were. They weren't political extremists, and they were carrying the flag of St George. We've been pushed into, having to recognise our country.
Why shouldn't they carry the flag?
Of course, I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. But I think what's very interesting about this, we spend a lot of time talking about Nigel Farage because Nigel Farage is big news. He has differentiated himself from Stephen Yaxley Lennon, a.k.a. Tommy Robinson. And I think he's been very, very careful and very clever there because there is a side to that march which is unpleasant, but overall it taps into a feeling of frustration, a feeling of being ignored, and a feeling of wanting to reassert yourself. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that flag is all of our flag, black, white, yellow, whatever. That is our flag in this country.
But the idea of Sir Keir Starmer, making the pathetic sort of statement he made the other day about, Palestinian state and all that, and the idea of these two flags of St George on either side of him, that's never happened before. This is assumed patriotism. This is, visual patriotism.
You're not taken in by it.
No, of course I'm not taken in by it. I'll
tell you what intrigues me about this business. Everybody is attacking the idea of recognising a Palestinian state. Virtually everybody in the sensible world has been talking about a two-state solution in Israel-Palestine. You can't have a two-state solution if it's only got one state. Therefore, we have to recognise Palestine, whether we like it or not.
No, I'm sorry.
How can you have a two-state solution with one state?
How have we segued
I don't
into
know.
that?
I was just wondering that myself. Maybe it's time to pause.
The idea from you.
That's a discussion for another time, Steve.
Sorry. So to get back to St George's Cross.
Well, I think, chaps, we're going to have to leave it there.
Yes.
But same time next week.
Are you cracking a whip again, are you, Mary?
Under strict instructions from the director.
And as a stalwart member of the Labour Party, I gather you're not going to be in Liverpool with the Brotherhood and the Sisterhood at the Labour conference.
No, Fulham are playing that Saturday.
Oh, much more important.
Well, I'll be there. Will you? Bringing my usual objective view of proceedings.
Well, God help them.
Excellent.
Well, Stephen Pound, Mike Parry, thank you so much. And here is your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
I hope you've had your injections.
Hello, very good morning to you. Just after 11:30. Well, the top story, energy watchdog Ofgem is forcing suppliers to offer at least one tariff with lower standing charges from January, but warns bills won't necessarily fall with costs simply shifted elsewhere. Campaigners call it a small step as charges remain unfair for low energy users. In New York, Donald Trump has said Ukraine can now win back all its original borders, a sharp U-turn after talks with President Zelensky. The US leader branded Russia a paper tiger as NATO vowed to hit back at escalating airspace violations. The UK's new AI fraudbuster has clawed back nearly £500 million in just a year, much of it lost during COVID. Ministers say the funding will pay for nurses, teachers and police. Travel chaos at Stansted this morning. Trains halted, roads gridlocked and a small lounge fire adding to the disruption. The airport is urging passengers to check before they travel. Jimmy Kimmel has returned to late-night TV after his suspension, tearfully insisting he never meant to make light of Charlie Kirk's murder, while blasting Trump's attempts to silence him as un-American. And in Asia, nearly 2 million people are evacuated in China as Super Typhoon Ragasa, the world's strongest storm so far this year, has slammed in after killing 15 in Taiwan. Those are the headlines for now. A full roundup from me at midday.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Well, they're here. Good afternoon, Britain, with Tom and Nana. What's coming up?
Well, of course, we're going to talk about that amazing speech by Donald Trump.
Oh, was it extraordinary?
Because the thing is, they're only allowed 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
He did 57.
Don't you love him?
And they did not interrupt him. Last time he was there, they were laughing at him, but there was no laughing this time.
No, absolutely.
We've had his country.
Some theories that he was sabotaged.
With the auto cue.
The auto cue suddenly didn't work for Donald Trump.
The
when Donald
escalator
Trump
didn't work?
stepped on an escalator, suddenly it stopped. And the extraordinary thing about this is that on Sunday, in the Sunday Times, the brilliant journalist Katie Balls wrote that she'd picked up some rumours from the UN that because the UN has had its funding cut by the Trump administration,
massively,
some people there wanted to show him up, potentially by, for example, turning off the escalators.
Well,
3 days later, what happens? The escalator stops when he steps on. We've got Katie Balls coming on the show to explain her scoop.
And who showed up who? Because Trump showed up the
Showed
UN.
them all up. But he was absolutely right, wasn't he?
Yeah,
so many things he said.
Extraordinary speech.
You know, NATO should shoot down Russian planes that enter the airspace of NATO countries. Why wouldn't you?
The feud with Sadiq Khan. Just love it.
Now, on literally the global stage.
Yes,
just extraordinary. But a little bit closer to home, we are expecting a fresh surge of migrant votes this weekend, just as the Labour Party kick off their annual conference in Liverpool. It is terrible news.
Terrible optic for Starmer. And the new Home Secretary, Siobhan.
Oh, and we should say, Nigel Farage says that migrants are eating swans. We've done a bit of an investigation to see if swans are actually being stolen from royal parks and being eaten.
Well, that will be a live revelation. We look forward to that. It's coming up at midday. Now, coming up next, you've probably noticed the cost of everyday food items from coffee to beef is continuing to rise. We'll reveal all next.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any low cloud, mist or fog clearing quite readily through the course of the morning, leaving a mostly dry day with sunny spells and temperatures around about average for the time of year, so still feeling rather chilly in the brisk breeze. But the reason for the dry settle conditions is all thanks to high pressure, and it stops this front moving too far inland, though we could just start to see more cloud push into the far northwest of Scotland later. Also a fair amount of cloud across northern and central parts of England, a chance this could produce the odd light shower, but for most, a dry day with sunny spells. Temperatures around about average, so just pushing into 17, possibly 18, 19 degrees across parts of the southeast, but around the mid-teens elsewhere. Now, it could be fairly breezy for a time, particularly across East Anglian coasts, parts of Sussex and Kent, but those winds will largely ease away through the course of the evening, remaining mostly dry and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales. A mix of cloud and also some clearer skies across Northern Ireland, and fairly similar conditions across Scotland too, though once again it could be fairly breezy across parts of the northwest, some more clouds starting to edge its way into far western coasts of Scotland. But otherwise it should remain dry through the overnight period, but with fairly light winds and clear skies, it's likely to be another chilly night. Some localised frost, particularly in western areas, and also a chance once again we could see some low cloud and mist and fog as we head our way towards dawn. Less so across parts of the southeast, some more cloud pushing in here, so temperatures won't get quite as chilly, but many towns and cities dropping to around the mid to high single figures. So it is going to be a fairly chilly start once again, but any mist or fog clearing quite quickly through the course of the morning, and it should be a fairly similar day, remaining mostly dry. Less chance of some showers, though a chance of some very light rain just pushing it into the far northwest. Still quite breezy here at times too. Fairly similar temperatures to what we'll see this afternoon, but we could just push into 20 degrees Celsius across the southeast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, now, you've probably noticed, I'm sure you have, the cost of everyday food items from coffee to beef and fruit juices have gone up sharply.
Yeah, the latest inflation data shows that food and non-alcoholic drink prices rose 4.9% in the year to July. But over the past 5 years, food prices have increased by an astonishing 37%.
Beef and veal have seen the biggest price hike in the past year, followed by coffee and chocolate.
Well, joining us now in the studio is personal finance expert Jasmine Birtles. Jasmine, good morning, welcome.
Hi.
Nobody can have failed to notice the extraordinary rise in food. I mean, 37% in just 5 years.
Exactly. And this is why every time we get the inflation figures, the official inflation figures, I go, lies, because, you know, you only have to go to the supermarket and also you pay your bills to find it's way more than 3.8%, which officially is what it is at the moment. And as you say, I mean, some of them are going up an extraordinary amount. I mean, I've got, you know, as you say, beef and veal up 24% in 12 months.
Why is that?
Well, you know, it's a variety of things. I think when it comes to meat products, farmers are under a lot of pressure. You know, there are fewer and fewer farms around. They're trying to get rid of that. And of course, you've got transport costs. And you could say across the board with food generally, supermarkets have increased costs. Certainly when it comes to people, they've got increased living wage, and a lot of them are on living wage. They've got increased national insurance, which a lot of companies are having to deal with, but supermarkets they have quite a lot of people working for them, so you know you put that on as well.
And energy prices have gone up. That's a key factor in food. What advice do you have? I mean, I've got a family of 5, 2 teenagers, 1 nearly teenager. We try to eat healthy. That means eating things like chicken and tuna, but the cost of those when you've got essentially 5 adult mouths to feed, we've found extraordinary rise.
Well, it is. It's very difficult. I think it's very, very difficult for families. And people like me, you know, we've been saying the same things over a few years now, and we're kind of running out because, you know, we're at the point where we're saying...
Everything costs a lot.
Yes, exactly. Everything does. What I'm finding is that people are not eating out so much because when your basic costs, your food, your energy, your transport are going up, particularly food and energy, then you literally don't have the extra cash for restaurants, pubs, etc. So, very sadly, a lot of restaurants, pubs, clubs, cafes are having to close down. It's terrible.
And we hear one solution the Chancellor may come forward with in the budget, Jasmine, is she's could get rid of, finally, VAT on our energy bills, which we could have done after we left the European Union. But that would, I think, probably save £80 a year.
Well, that's the thing.
It's better than nothing, but it's not a vast
amount.
And
it won't help food producers.
And it won't
because businesses just claim VAT back anyway.
Exactly. I mean, literally, what I'm saying, and I've been saying this for a while, is that we need to actually dig up the garden and start growing our own vegetables, growing our own fruit. It's harder in the winter, certainly, but I do know people are doing that. People who are doing it on their patio, people are doing it in their homes, in pots. I mean, it doesn't cover everything. You know, I don't suggest you have a pig in your back garden, although, you know, I've got friends who've got chickens.
One-time use.
Exactly. But at least fruit and vegetables is the start.
And we've seen as well, we saw this figure that came out yesterday, that inflation in our country will be the highest in the G7 in the next 12 months.
It's insane, and it doesn't need to be, and much of this is because of energy costs.
Yes.
And the net zero madness that we are currently under. I mean, you know, we can talk all day about this, but really we could and we should be having our own much cheaper energy if we were baby drilling.
Yes.
You know, we should be doing
well. We're going to show how this food inflation plays out in practice. So last year, our lunchtime shopping, this is Miriam and I, we go to lunchtime shopping.
Slightly fictitious. I think.
Came to £56.20. That's for a litre of milk, 5 chocolate bars, 2 beef joints and a kilo of coffee beans. This year...
In 2025, that amount has increased to £67.83, a rise of £11.63. Now, I should point out that I don't buy those items every lunch, but nevertheless, it's indicative.
That is a lot of money, £11.
It is a lot of money. And the terrible thing is that those who are on a fixed income, particularly the retired people, well, they're going to get an extra 4.7% next year because, you know, the triple log, which as a country, by the way, we can't afford,
No.
but they need to have it.
Don't get us started on this.
Yes, exactly, I know. But 4.7%, again, it's not going to touch the sides because in theory, inflation is below, but in practice it is.
Yeah, because we're saying it's 4.9% food inflation, but we know every time we go to shop, it's gone up again.
And there are some things that you can choose not to buy, like holidays or meals out, but you can't choose not to buy food, and that's why it's such a killer, isn't it?
It really is. And there are things like we've got, of course, food banks, which are being used a lot. There's also community fridges, and I do recommend that people look up online community fridge and put their own area, Bradford or whatever, and there's free food being given away, so that's a good start.
Right.
There's also a few apps like Olio and Too Good To Go, which have free or cheap food that you can get locally. So those are very useful to people.
Very useful advice. Olio, Too Good To Go.
Yes.
Yep.
Very
brilliant.
good.
Jasmine Bursars, thank you so
You are a
much for
star.
coming in. You must come in again. It's such an important story.
It really is. Now, if you want some elusive holiday sun, you might not be able to afford it, of course, because of the cost of living crisis. Here's some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Western and central parts of Europe will start to see any heavy downpours easing away, though some scattered showers will still remain. That's not so much the case across the Canary Islands, Madeira, also Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, largely dry, plenty of sunny spells. But across France, even into parts of Germany, we could still see some isolated showers remain. But through Italy, the Adriatic coastline and also parts of Greece remaining settled, dry with sunny spells, though we could start to see more showers over the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the
because
failure is...
you're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Cheltenham Ladies' Day is set to return in the 2026 Racing Festival for the first time in 7 years.
It was fell victim to wokery when it became Style Wednesday and it became a green-focused fashion day, but now common sense has prevailed and it's reverting back to Ladies' Day. And why shouldn't it?
Absolutely. So we're asking, is this a win for the war on woke? Well, joining us now is the horse racing presenter and commentator, Derek Thompson. Derek, good morning. Welcome to the programme. Now, of course, they do say go woke, go broke. Is that why Cheltenham have decided to put the name back to its traditional form?
Well, I think it's a fantastic idea because, as you both know, Ladies' Day is always very special. And we love it. And Miriam, you've got to come, you've got to wear a nice hat as well and buy a nice outfit. So it really is great, this. And whenever I go to Ladies' Day, whether it's Royal Ascot, whether it's Yarmouth, whether it's Redcar, whatever it is, it's a very special day. And we had the St. Ledger meeting last week at Doncaster. And Ladies' Day, it was incredible. And you ask the ladies, was it good? They'll say, great. And you ask the fellas, was it good? And Andrew, what would you say? Yes.
Exactly. I'd say it's brilliant. And quite right, too. It's just a I mean, we in GB News, by the way, continue to call it Ladies' Day because we just weren't going to fall for all this nonsense.
Agreed entirely. This is what racing is all about. And, you know, you can come... I don't know how you wear your high heels all day, especially when there are 7 races, but just look at the outfits. It is great. And just imagine if there's a best dressed lady competition. Wow, if you win that, it's incredible. And the fellas love it. Look at these lovely outfits.
It's fabulous.
You know, some of them are very, very special. And it makes the ladies feel good as well. Unfortunately, us husbands have to pay for all these very expensive outfits.
But it also brings out the great... It brings out the great British eccentrics too, Derek, which is a really important part of it all.
It is, absolutely. And by the way, you know, it comes in March, you know, because some of them had a hard winter. Now, yes, you could get dressed up like these guys.
Fabulous.
Yeah, well, you could say that.
Now, Derek, sorry to make you comment on the world of politics, but do you think this is a sign of the way the winds are blowing, that sports perhaps became too politically correct, too worried about keeping up with political trends, and perhaps we're seeing a return to common sense?
Exactly. Common sense is what it's all about. Come racing, come and enjoy. And, you know, we've reduced the actual people who can come into the races now to 66,000 per day. It shows you how popular this is. And are you ready for this? A pint of Guinness is not going to cost you £8 anymore. It's going to cost you £7.50. So
even better.
That's an interesting... Oh, that's a... See, look at these outfits. And, you know, it gives you something to look at during the day. If it's raining, you can wear something warm and dry, a nice coat. If it's nice and sunny, you can wear something else. But I would recommend, Miriam, just not wearing too high heels, because it can be a long walk from the car park to the race course and walking around all the time. So just bear that in mind.
Well, that sounds like some very sensible advice. Maybe we should present our show from Cheltenham Ladies' Day next year.
Very good idea. And we'll get some tips from Derek.
Absolutely. Derek, thank you very much. That's all from us.
We'll be back with you tomorrow. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Nana. We'll see you tomorrow.
A man who attacked a protester for burning a Quran, attacked him with a knife, has been spared jail. The protester? Well, he himself has been convicted of a religiously aggravated offence.
And also Rachel Reeves, literally, is she about to tax everything that moves, including your car, 3 to 9 pence per mile? That is a suggestion from one of the big think tanks. Stay with us. Up next, let's get an update with your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any low cloud, mist or fog clearing quite readily through the course of the morning, leaving a mostly dry day with sunny spells and temperatures around about average for the time of year, so still feeling rather chilly in the brisk breeze. But the reason for the dry settled conditions is all thanks to high pressure, and it stops this front moving too far inland, though we could just start to see more cloud push into the far northwest of Scotland later. Also a fair amount of cloud across northern and central parts of England, a chance this could produce the odd light shower, but for most, a dry day with sunny spells, temperatures around about average, so just pushing into 17, possibly 18, 19 degrees across parts of the southeast, but around the mid-teens elsewhere. Now, it could be fairly breezy for a time, particularly across East Anglian coasts, parts of Sussex and Kent, but those winds will largely ease away through the course of the evening, remaining mostly dry and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales. A mix of cloud and also some clearer skies across Northern Ireland, and fairly similar conditions across Scotland too, though once again it could be fairly breezy across parts of the northwest. Some more clouds starting to edge its way into far western coasts of Scotland, but otherwise it should remain dry through the overnight period, but with fairly light winds and clear skies, it's likely to be another chilly night. Some localised frost, particularly in western areas, and also a chance once again we could see some low cloud and mist and fog as we head our way towards dawn. Less so across parts of the southeast, some more cloud pushing in here, so temperatures won't get quite as chilly, but many towns and cities dropping to around the mid to high single figures. So it is going to be a fairly chilly start once again, but any mist or fog clearing quite quickly through the course of the morning, and it should be a fairly similar day, remaining mostly dry. Less chance of some showers, though a chance of some very light rain just pushing it into the far northwest. Still quite breezy here at times too. Fairly similar temperatures to what we'll see this afternoon, but we could just push into 20 degrees Celsius across the southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.